I'm gonna be honest. The last few nights have been a little more than sleepless. I live in rural Tennessee. I'd like to keep my location private for obvious reasons. So I'm more than used to noises in the middle of the night. This is kinda nothing though. The noises started about a week ago. It wasn't anything more than something big crunching over weeds and sticks. At first, my initial assumptions was that it was a bear. Black bears are incredibly common around here, mountain lions too, but those are a lot louder than a bear. Scary as hell too. I don't know about you, but I nearly shit myself the first time I heard one out in the woods. It was like being in a horror movie because they scream like a woman being murdered or a baby crying. Neither sound is something you'd want to hear in the middle of the woods when you're alone. Anyways, getting off topic. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous, and I tend to ramble when I get like this. I should probably just start from the beginning. The day it all started was uneventful. I'm an introverted person, so most of my days are spent at home or generally on my property, while my wife is at work. I had done a bit of yard work and noticed some things were out of place. Of course, I just brushed this off. The neighbor's dog could have gotten into my yard tools and dragged them around. Hell, my dog could have done it. Well, maybe not. He is a little dog, so that rules him out. Either way, I tidied up the area and went about my day. Me and my wife talked idly about our day that evening before we eventually retired to bed. I don't remember when I woke up exactly, but my wife was asleep next to me. Leah was a heavy sleeper, while I was the exact opposite. I thought I had a nightmare or something when I jolted awake. Our bedroom was pitch black. I took a deep breath and sighed as I decided to try and lay down. Just as my head hit the pillow, I heard it. There is an easy way to tell the difference between the footfalls of a heavy versus a smaller animal. Theirs have smaller hooves, meaning they make less noise when walking around and gazing. Bears, on the other hand, have large paws and put up to 500 pounds of weight when hitting with each step. The cracking of foliage and sticks told me there was something big outside my window. I looked over at the blurry figure of my dog, Zeus, who was standing at attention at the foot of my bed. I shook my head and reached a hand down to my little guard dog and gave him a gentle pat on the head. You heard it too, huh? It's just a bear or something, dude. Nothing's eating you tonight. I joked with a yawn. But he didn't move. His eyes were wide and staring at the wall underneath my window. Zeus growled loudly as the siding of my house creaked with a weight pressing against it. Yeah, definitely a bear. They rubbed their scent on everything. Dude, chill, I huffed in annoyance as he continued to growl. Weird, most little dogs had Napoleon syndrome, but Zeus wasn't like that. He yipped and barked occasionally when he was excited, but never growled more than the occasional playful gruffs. When it became obvious that he wasn't going to let up, I resigned to picking him up under my arm and outsing him from the bedroom. I hated doing it, but I wanted to actually sleep tonight so I could get things done in the morning. With that done, I managed to get back to sleep despite the rustling outside. The next day is when I noticed something was off. After Leah left for work, I decided to see if the bear had gotten into anything. To my surprise, nothing was out of place. I thought this was weird for a bear, they could easily kill you, but the big guys were like forest puppies. They got into anything with an infant-like curiosity. My bird feeders were untouched and my garden was unplundered. The only thing I could find to prove anything had been here was some weird impressions in the mud. It had rained last night, so I couldn't be sure what I was looking at. Obviously, this wasn't what it was, but it looked like something long like a human foot, but the long divots in the mud looked like claws. Of course, it was weird looking, but if you slide your feet in the mud, the prints would look pretty freaky too. I didn't think it was anything to mention to my wife. She slept through the whole thing, so I didn't see a need to freak her out. The bear was miles away by now, nothing to worry about. The songs came back that night. They were there every night for the next 4 days. I was awoken each time by the noises of trampled weeds and the creaking siding of my house. Zeus wasn't having any of this either, and would growl every time this happened. I still said nothing to my wife because I assumed this was a normal animal. It was last night that the whistling started. I was sleeping peacefully until my dog started to growl. He wasn't on the bed, and I groaned in annoyance at him. This nightly routine was starting to affect my mental state. It wasn't a great feeling to be awoken from sleep suddenly every night. "I swear to God, Zeus," I muttered as I sat up and snatched my glasses from the nightstand. I was about to once again take him out to the living room to sleep when I heard it. Now, I know what a person whistling sounds like, and that is exactly what I heard. It wasn't a tune or anything, just one long, continuous note that occasionally drifted into high and low notes like a wave. Now this scared me. I lived on a back road with nothing for almost 10 miles. Either way you drive. I have 2 neighbors on either side of me about 100 feet away from my yard. One is a nice little old lady, and the other is an older guy who had a few pit bulls that my dog played with. Neither of them would have any reason to be in my yard at this time of night, nor would either of them be freaking whistling outside my window. The whistle made Zeus start barking, waking my wife with a start. What?" Leah said, looking around the dark room and rubbing her eyes as if that would help her vision adjust any faster. Zeus was still barking and was now on the floor, clawing at the walls with a dull claw. That did nothing. My eyes had adjusted enough to the darkness that I could see her face contorted from confusion to fear as she heard the sound of Zeus barking. "Chris, what the hell is that?" Leah asked from whisper as she reached for the lamp on her side of the bed. I grabbed her arm quickly, hoping it wasn't too rough. "Don't," I whispered, looking at her with equally wide eyes. "I'm gonna call the cops. Make sure the front and the back doors are locked. Keep the lights off." We both slowly crept out of bed as Zeus' bark became muffled. Once living into the rest of the house, cell reception isn't great out here. So we have a house phone. As Leah went past me to double check all the locks, I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. 911, what is the address of your emergency? The operator sounded tired, which made sense since I saw the time from the wall clock read 2:55 a.m. It's 123 Blank Road. I gave the address with a rush urgency as I stepped to peek past the curtain to the front porch. It was impossible to see anything out there, so I stepped back as I heard their faint typing.
Okay, and what's the emergency?
There's this guy, or well, I guess I don't know who's out there. I started and glanced back towards the hall that led to our room, but there's someone on my property and I want an officer here as soon as possible. I finally got my thoughts together.
What are they doing?
The operator asked as there was more typing. Nothing really. They're whistling. I know that doesn't sound like anything, but I'm worried there might be more people who might try and break in, I said, adding onto my answer quickly so as to not be dismissed. There was a pause on the other side of the line before I heard a faint sigh. They must have forgotten to mute themselves, and I tried to swallow my frustration.
Alright, I'll have an officer head your way. It'll be about 30 minutes to get someone over there. Do you need me to stay on the line?
They asked, but obviously didn't want to do this. No, it's fine, thank you. I should have made them stay on the phone but decided against it. I hit the end call button with a huff and my wife spoke behind me. Is someone coming? Leah whispered, still scared from the situation we found ourselves in. I nodded, tossing the phone onto the couch. Yeah, in about 30 minutes, hopefully. I sighed as I walked quietly towards the bedroom. I could hear Zeus barking, so I assumed the person was still outside. We made the collective decision to stay in the living room with our backs to the far wall. Leah watched the kitchen door while I watched the front door and nearby window. We didn't have anything in means of defense, but I didn't have a lamp directly behind me that could feasibly be used for some blunt force trauma and possibly stitches from a shattered bulb. Those next 30 minutes were the longest in my life. I was so thankful when red and blue lights pulled up the small hill in my driveway. I opened the door and flipped the porch light on before the officer got the chance to get out of his car. I didn't know him by name, but this county was small, so I had seen him around before. Average height around 5'10", with a bit of a gut and age starting to show in his face. Morning, folks. I could see in his nameplate said Jameson. I stepped out of the doorway, having quickly slipped on a pair of shoes. Morning. I don't know if anyone here anymore. Our dog stopped barking a minute ago. Neither of us wanted to look around on our own, I told him as he nodded and gave a vague gesture to the yard. Well, let's go take a look, yeah? Officer Jameson said. I nodded, stepping off the porch with him. Leah opted to stay in the house while we went around the side yard. I didn't expect to find anyone there, but what we did find was just as horrifying. Right below our window, lit up by the officer's flashlight, was gashes in the siding of my house. Looks like you had a bear over here, or maybe a cougar, Officer Jameson said with a low whistle. I frowned, my heart sinking. No, that wasn't an animal outside. It was a person. Someone was whistling, I said adamantly as I tore my eyes away from the claw marks in my house. Why would a bear or mountain lion even do that? Well, I don't see some fella doing that to your property, he replied, my frown deepening. You aren't listening. There wasn't an animal out here. I couldn't understand what he was missing. His tone shifted immediately. Hey, settle down. Whatever it was, a person or animal is obviously gone now. I'll look around the rest of your property, but if I don't find anything, You should just head back to bed, Officer Jameson stated seriously. I deflated at this and gave one more glance towards the damages. All right. I gave up and let him do his final sweep as I went inside and locked the door. He left soon after my wife and I returned to a very weary sleep. Nothing else happened, but now I'm sitting here writing this. I don't know what to do. I could try and get a security camera, I guess.